When I was obese, I didn't eat because I was hungry. I ate because I was tired, stressed, lonely, or just chasing that next hit of comfort. And when I went on the carnivore diet, I expected all those patterns to disappear overnight. I heard the advice, eat as much as you want, and it felt amazing. I loved it because it meant nothing had to change. But that's the trap. You can change the food on your plate, but unless you change your behaviours and your habits, you're not going to improve your life. If we're just meeting, my name's Claire, Carnivore Claire. I've lost over 140 pounds eating a high-fat carnivore diet with OMAD. Eating lean cuts of meat will leave you feeling unsatisfied and lead to constant grazing. What happens is we eat food on the SAD diet that's low in fat, so it doesn't actually satisfy us, and it's high carb, so it raises our insulin. Therefore, the hunger hormones are up, and what happens is we are constantly hungry. So that's why they tell us to eat 3 to 6 meals a day. When you know about all of this, it seems ludicrous that you would do that kind of diet in order to lose weight. What we're talking about today is that we want to eat high fat. That will keep us satisfied for longer, which means we will eat less over time. But the truth is, we have had a lifetime of being told that low fat is the way to go. High fat is bad for you. High fat will lead to heart attacks and strokes and everything in between. So a lot of people will come to carnivore and think, I'm going to do carnivore because it clearly works, but I'm going to do a low fat version. So what will happen, you might eat some turkey, some chicken, those kinds of things, maybe some salmon, and an hour, 2 hours afterwards, you're going to be hungry again because your body has not got the nourishment that it needs. Whereas if you come into it and eat a high fat diet, such as red meat, then you will eat your meal and you will be able to go for hours and hours and hours without eating another thing. And the net calories or the net energy that you have at the end of that means that your weight loss is going to be more sustainable on the high fat diet rather than the low fat diet. Protein takes a lot of energy to digest, and so your body's going to be working harder, so your body's going to be wanting more energy, so it's just going to make you more hungry. And if you're low on fat, you are going to be not feeding your hormones. And especially if you're around the same age as me, menopausal age, then that is going to be a problem. What many people find when they come onto carnivore is that they start doing it for a week or two and then their energy drops really, really low. And that is because they're no longer getting the glucose. Their glucose levels are dropping, but they're not putting their fat levels up. So what you've got is no glucose, no fat, no energy. So you cannot get your energy from anywhere, and that's when you see the fatigue set in. You are going to have to become fat adapted. So that means you need to have high fat. It's especially important in the very first few weeks. For myself, when I started carnivore, I had this exact problem. I became very, very fatigued. I was fatigued anyway because I have ME, and it was on another level, something I'd never experienced. And it took me probably 2 months to really work out what was going on. I wish I had a video like this then. But what happened was eventually I realised I needed to up my fat. And once I did, my levels returned back to baseline. Do you notice that when you wake up and if you feel hungry and you eat straight away, you are eating all day long? Whereas if you wake up and you don't eat straight away, you're much more in control of your appetite for the whole day. Well, there is a good reason for this, and that is because you're raising your insulin when you eat. And when you raise your insulin comes back down and signals to your body that you need more food. They said for years and years that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Yes, I'm sure it is if they want to sell all the food products. This doesn't only apply to breakfast though. If you are someone who does like to graze throughout the day, you might have a little bit of this, you might have a little bit of that. What you're going to find is you're going to be hungrier over the whole day. If you have too much protein, it can turn it into glucose, which will really raise your insulin. Your food noise is going to become insane. When you've got food noise, which is intrusive thoughts about food, you are constantly going to have food on your mind, and that in itself is going to cause you to overeat. Our digestive systems need a break, and when you give them a break, you will see your food noise drop down, you will see everything level out. This is why I love to do OMAD, because I have a huge break in eating and my body's not worrying about where the next meal is coming from. If you have a structure where you eat maybe once or twice a day and then you give your body a complete break, you are going to see the best weight loss results that you could ever possibly ask to see. This is why when I was on the SAD diet and I was eating good food, so that would be whole foods, and I was grazing all day because I was always hungry and the weight just wasn't coming off, or I might lose a few pounds and then it would go back on. Every post on social media was telling me that I didn't have any willpower, I didn't want it enough in order to lose the weight, and I was there really struggling, not knowing what I was doing wrong and trying to overcome these feelings of the need to eat. Why is nobody telling us about the tricks to get into control? And instead, they are telling us to do the wrong thing and then blaming us when we can't achieve the results that we want. Due to years and years of yo-yo dieting, we have lost the ability to be able to tell the difference between appetite and hunger. So appetite is in the brain. It's when we decide, or our brain decides, that we want to eat and we want to eat certain things, or we really fancy this bit of food or that bit of food. That is appetite. Hunger is when your body is signaling that it wants food for nourishment. So when you can decipher between the two, then you are going to be in a much better position to get the results that you want. When we think about it, the SAD diet, and in particular Weight Watchers, Slimming World, all of those, they have us living in scarcity. First of all, they're having us eat low fat, so it's not filling us up, so we want to eat, and then they shame us for overeating. Then they tell us you're eating too much, you have to rein it in, you have to pull it back, and then your brain is like, I want to eat. Your dopamine centers are going crazy because you are not fueling your body. When you have scarcity of food, you cannot think of anything else. When we come to carnivore and we hear this advice that you can eat as much as you want, this is feeding into this very insecurity. It is telling you there's no scarcity, you can eat as much as you want, don't worry about it. It's kind of an antidote to the SAD diet culture, because the two ways of eating seem to pit themselves against each other in the communities. And so what happens is you start eating as much as you want, but then you start to overeat and you start to put on weight, and you won't get the results you want in that way. That very carnivore advice is useful in the first month because you're becoming fat adapted. It's really super important that you are having enough fat to sustain you and to move you over to this new system. But at some point you have to start asking yourself, am I eating too much? Although intentions are really good in telling people to eat as much as you want, because in a perfect world we would just eat until we're full. But when you've had years and years of dieting advice and you've lost that ability to be able to tell the difference between hunger and appetite, you're not going to be able to stop when you should be stopping. And that very advice then leads to disordered eating. The brutal truth is that if you keep overeating in this way, you're not going to get rid of your fear of food. you're just going to sit very comfortably in it. Brené Brown said that you cannot have comfort and courage at the same time. If you are enjoying this video so far, do hit subscribe, give me a like and a comment. Let me know which of my points really hit home for you. So in the carnivore community, there's some very loud voices. They're very loud, they're very influential. There's a lot of advice that I took on board when I first started carnivore that actually I found not to be true for me. And the reason that that happens is that these influencers, and myself is included in that, we try to put a message across, but because we're reaching a lot of people, we avoid nuance. We'll give a message, but it will be very generalized. And the idea of that is that it helps a lot of people. The more nuanced we become, the more specific we become, the less people we're going to help. So when you hear advice like eat as much as you want, or calories don't matter, or any of the other advice that you hear from these big influencers, it's not that they're saying that that is absolutely true. In addition to that, influencers are sharing their own experiences and beliefs about what works. When you've got people like me or like Laura Spaff, Kelly Hogan, people like that who have been through the process themselves and seen the success in a certain way, we come to it with our own experiences and we want to give you the information that helped us that we didn't have at the start. When you have the carnivore doctors, Ken Berry, Chaffee, Westman, trying to think of some others, lots of them, Sean Baker, they're coming at it from their clinical experience. They might not have had experience of ever being obese, but they have got a lot of clinical experience. They know how to look at data. They bring invaluable benefit to the community as well, but they're coming at it from a professional opinion. So you've got these two types of voices that are very loud, mixed together. We believe that what they say goes. There's a lot of peer pressure. We have to do what they say if we want to get those results. You may find that when you come to my channel as well. You've seen the results that I have got. I'm telling you what I've done and what you need to do in order to get the same results. And you are feeling like, if I want the results, I have to do that. But there are so many ways to go about getting the results. My way is just one way. Kelly Hogan's is another way. Steak and Butter Girl, hers is another way. We're all just doing the best we can to help other people. When you come to the carnivore community, you have to approach it with a critical eye. So it's good to inform ourselves, to educate ourselves, and to listen to those in the know who have got more information than we have. But at the same time, we are our own best experts at our own body. I can sit here and tell you that you need to restrict calories in order to lose weight. And someone will be in my comments saying, I ate 4,000 calories a day and I lost 100 pounds. I'm not saying that my advice works for everyone. I'm saying it works for specific people. And in my case, I would say women of around the same age as me, and also women who have been yo-yo dieting, people who have tried that other advice and it doesn't work, who then come to me and do see the results that they want to see. The carnivore community has become almost like an antidote to the vegan or the SAD diet. It's seen in our community that if you restrict your calories or you restrict your incoming energy in any way, it's shameful. You are doing something wrong. You are less than. And if you don't count calories and you just eat as much as you want, you are the top 1%. That's not how I found my success, and that is not what I advocate to you. In this community, having a big appetite is seen as a badge of honour. But I'm here to tell you that if you continue to overeat in that way, you will not see the results that you want to see. And furthermore, comparisons to others who can eat 3 pounds of meat and lose weight is not actually helpful for you. If you are a woman who is maybe 45 years old, she's yo-yo dieted her whole life, her metabolism is all over the place, and you are desperate. You've tried everything. You've even tried the eating as much as you want and it doesn't work. And then you feel like there's something wrong with you, that you are broken because some bodybuilding guy can eat 3 pounds of meat and lose weight. So why can't I? You've got completely different bodies. That's why. You've got completely different metabolisms. You've got completely different energy levels. You've got different activity levels. You've got different body compositions. Comparisons to others is not helpful. And where we as influencers give general advice, that can be the fall down if you take it very, very literally. I always say that you have to take what resonates and leave the rest. In my own personal experience, when I first started, I was eating as much as I wanted. And as someone who weighed 287 pounds and was used to eating a lot, had a very big stomach because the food had stretched my stomach out, my capacity to eat was a lot. And what happened is I didn't lose a thing. And actually, although I did see a reduction in some autoimmune issues, such as pain and inflammation, the weight just stayed exactly the same. And it wasn't until I incorporated OMAD that I was able to see the results that I wanted to see. When I mentioned this on one of my very early YouTube videos, people would tell me, you've got to heal first. So the idea is that you need to reduce your inflammation and then your body will release the fat cells. But that is completely wrong. There probably is some truth to it, a very tiny amount of truth to it. Although inflammation can stall weight loss, a bigger problem is insulin levels stalling weight loss. When your insulin rises, what happens is it shuts off your ability to burn your fat cells. When you are obese, it causes massive inflammation in your body. Ask me how I know. By bringing your weight down, you are reducing your inflammation. My inflammation levels have gone, my CRP rating in my blood tests have gone from 20 when I was obese down to 6.5. So it does work bringing your weight down. We have come from years and years of disordered eating. If you have come to Carnivore as an obese person or a very overweight person, you have likely had years of disordered eating. That is justified and it is validated on the SAD diet. So we continue doing it, but the problem gets worse and worse. On the SAD diet, we're eating all the foods that we love, that bring us comfort and joy. And when we come over to the carnivore diet, the idea is that we stop using food for entertainment and we use it for fuel. But what often happens is we begin trying to replicate those bad habits of the SAD diet onto the carnivore diet. The biggest way I see this happening is when we try to mimic the food we love. You come to carnivore because you want to get rid of the junk food, you want to eat properly, you want to eat the proper human diet, and then you come to carnivore and you want recipes, carnivore bread, carnivore pizza, carnivore donuts, carnivore pancakes. There's so many recipes we can bring in that is just replicating bad habits, junk food eating and disordered eating as well. It's a way that we feel like we can manage the carnivore diet. So the carnivore diet we view as an extreme diet because it is. And when we come into it, we're like, I can do carnivore, but if I need bread still, so I'll have carnivore bread. So what invariably happens when we're using these recipes is that we end up binging. You might make a pizza and eat the whole pizza where you didn't need to eat the whole pizza, and it's way too many calories and too much energy for you, but you are going to eat it because you enjoy it. You're still eating for entertainment, so that binging is still very much present. I'm not a recipe person, and you might not be either, so you might be there saying, no, I don't do that. Are you eating copious amounts of bacon, which has got lots of preservatives? It's processed food. Are you eating or drinking cream? Are you having loads of cheese? I went for a period of having a lot of cheese. It's just bringing your disordered eating from the SAD over to this way of eating. The whole idea of carnivore is to become healthy eaters, to eat in a very regulated way for our body's needs, not our brain's needs. That's why when we go to the community and hear eat as much as you want, we're looking for permission to continue that disordered eating. And we're going to get it if we go looking for it. I never got into the recipes. I'm not a recipe person. My energy is pretty limited because of my health condition. And so I like to either just put a steak in the air fryer and take it out when it's done, or maybe put it on the pan with some eggs. Job done, once a day. I'm good as golden. But I am not free from this very thing that we're talking about. For a very long time on the carnivore diet, I used cheese in order to lose weight. Sounds insane, doesn't it? And a lot of people told me, you've got to give up the cheese and then you'll lose more weight. Well, I was losing a lot of weight anyway, but that was because I was being very, very careful with it. I was eating cheese in a disordered way. I would often have 800 calories of cheese in a day and 400 calories of meat. So that is a really disordered way of eating. Cheese should be a condiment, not a main meal. But what I did was I let go of other food in order to be able to have cheese, because cheese made me feel good. I was still eating for entertainment. In the end, I had to stop the cheese. It started making me poorly. It was making me bloated. It was inflaming me, and it was stalling my weight loss even when I was restricting my calories. And so I removed the cheese and started eating in a ordered fashion. So I was eating my steaks and my eggs only. And then the weight continued to fall off, and I looked and felt a lot healthier. Overeating becomes a way of proving your worthiness to yourself. If you can afford a lot, that means abundant success. You have made it. And so that mentality carries over to the carnivore diet. So what happens is when we're on the carnivore diet, we are having to restrict ourselves because you can only eat very limited foods. So in our minds, when we're not fully on board with carnivore, we're telling ourselves that we are depriving ourselves of these other foods, these SAD foods over here, in order to get our health back. So what we do is we try and compensate by having extra carnivore foods. You might buy more expensive brands. You might buy aged meat if you are able to do that. You might buy things that were previously considered a luxury, like clotted cream, for example, or raw milk, and consider yourself happy, fulfilled, and like life is good because you've got those things. I know I do it myself. I do this myself. I always feel better when I get a higher quality product. Sometimes I'll go to the shop and look for a ribeye, and I can get the dirt cheap one, or I can buy the more luxury one. And I always go for the more luxury one. With meat, it is a good idea But there's a mental thing that goes on there that makes us feel like, yes, I am worthy of that, so I'm going to have that, and then that makes us feel better about ourselves. I have a Facebook group for carnivores, so do come over and check that out. But often we will share the food that we're having, a photo of the food that we are having, and we'll get likes and comments and validation for that food. And that will also make us feel worthier and make us feel better about ourselves. It'll make us feel like, yes, I'm doing good, even if it's not food. But you are like going to any group and saying, you know, I've been good, I've been fully carnivore, I've been clean carnivore. And then you'll get lots of praise. And that makes you feel good, but it's external praise. What happens when you get that praise is you feel amazing and you want to recreate that feeling. So you might overeat, you might eat again and again, and you might keep sharing again and again in order to keep getting that external validation. What happens is we have fragile confidence, and our food decisions that are supposed to be about our health and well-being become about feeling better emotionally. A lot of people confuse stress, fatigue, poor sleep and hormones for hunger. Over time, that becomes automatic overeating. When we get hunger signals, we automatically think that we need to eat in order to fix that, and we are not looking at the biofeedback that our bodies are giving us. There's so many things that can cause what we think is hunger. We've talked about the entertainment noise in our heads. When your insulin is raised, that can cause hunger that is unnecessary, because if you balance your insulin, you'll balance your hunger. There are other things that can cause that feeling of hunger as well. Electrolyte imbalance is a good one that can cause it. Stress hormones can spike hunger. This is a big one for many of us, isn't it? We live in a very stressful world. And what happens is when we're stressed, we reach for food, usually high sugary foods. But the truth is it could be your cortisol levels that are making you reach for foods that your body doesn't actually need. We might be mistaking fatigue for hunger. If we're feeling really low energy, we might reach for those high energy snacks. I'm someone who has done that in my personal experience before I was a carnivore, because I have ME and I get post-exercise malaise, which is any small activity can lead to disproportionate levels of fatigue for days on end that sleep or rest doesn't help me recover from. What I found myself doing was reaching for high sugary, highly calorific foods that would give me that instant energy boost, but then that energy boost would drop off again, and then I'd have to eat more in order to get that boost again. On a day where I'm fatigued and laid up in bed, I notice that I want to have my OMAD meal a few hours earlier than I would otherwise. The brutal truth of this is that if you feed yourself every time you get a hunger signal without thinking about or concerning yourself with the idea that it could be for another reason, you are going to just keep overeating. But if you look at what is going on in your body, what is your body telling you? Are you thirsty? That's another thing that it could be. There's so many things. It could be boredom. You need to go for a walk. There's so many things that could be causing it, that if you paid attention to those things rather than the actual just hunger must eat, then you're going to bring your overall calories down and see more success. Carnivore advice tells us to eat as much as we want and don't worry about calories. Don't count calories, don't think about calories, don't do anything with calories. I'm here to tell you, if you do that, you're going to run into problems. I've seen so many people in my comments tell me that they've been on carnivore for X amount of months and they have gained weight. There's this idea in the carnivore community that every other diet, you have to manage your calories. With carnivore, magically, calories don't actually matter anymore. When you see people posting, I've lost 140 pounds on carnivore, they think, whoa, I need to do carnivore in order to lose weight. But it's so much more nuanced than that. Because I didn't just do carnivore, I did OMAD, which was restricted eating, and I restricted my calories as well. When I was only doing carnivore, even clean carnivore, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. Yes, eating abundantly can work for a few people. If it's worked for you, then you're one of the very lucky few. But what happens is, for those that are successful, is they are able to recognize when they need to stop. For most of us, we cannot recognize that. And even if we can, it might be that our body is not metabolizing food in the same way as someone else. You've only got to go through the comments of some of my bigger videos and you will see copious amounts of people saying that they've either stalled or they've either put on weight or they've lost weight and then it's gone back on again. The truth is, fat and protein still has energy attached to it. There's this idea that calories don't exist. It's like an arbitrary idea that doesn't really exist in biology. And while that may be true, it is a marker of energy. It is a way to measure energy. In that way, fat and protein have calories, they have energy. And another argument is that if you are counting calories, you're not going to be doing it accurately because it's impossible to count calories accurately. No one is suggesting that you have to count every single calorie forevermore. I am not recommending that you start logging everything and you count every calories. So that burger was 463 calories. Those eggs were 287. No, I'm not suggesting that in the slightest. What I'm suggesting is you take a couple of days to log your calories in some kind of app. You measure them for a couple of days. You get a rough idea of the calories that you're consuming, and that enables you to then monitor the food you've got coming in. Because if you're eating a lot of calories, you might need to bring it down if you're putting on weight. It's about empowering yourself to see the results that you want to see and doing the things that you need to do to get those results. Overeating on carnivore isn't about willpower. It's about unlearning years and years of habits, fears, and disordered eating. Once you see the problems, you can free yourself and start making the changes that you need to make. Most people in the carnivore community are sticking to beliefs that are keeping them stuck. That's why I recommend that you watch this video next, which is the carnivore myth that keeps you fat.